As the professor mentioned a couple weeks ago, history is everywhere, and that is nowhere more true than here in the Hawaiian Islands, where every rock and every tree and every stream seems to have some sort of history behind it or significance. So today, behind me, I'm standing in one of the centers for keeping this cultural significance alive, standing in front of the Bishop Museum, which was named after Princess Bernice Bishop in 1889. The Bishop Museum was founded by Charles Bishop, and it was in honor of his late wife, Bernice Bishop. She was the last member of the royal Kamehameha family. The Kamehameha family, you may have heard the name, even if you haven't been to Hawaii, as the King Kamehameha, the original one, was the first one to unite all the Hawaiian Islands under one rule in the late 1700s. He accomplished this after decades and centuries of warfare between the islands, which is common throughout history, as we've seen in some of the other cultures that we've studied. King Kamehameha had rule of the Hawaiian Islands for about 100 years, from the late 1700s until the late 1800s, of which Princess Bishop was the last of the bloodline of that royal family. And when she died, the Kamehameha family bloodline died with her. Princess Bishop's family wanted her to marry another royal to keep the family bloodline alive, but she refused, and she married a white businessman, Charles Reed Bishop, and they had no kids, and when she died, that was the end of the royal bloodline. Part of her will when she died was that much of her estate be made into two schools, one for boys and one for girls. The building behind us, the site that we're on now, the museum was built on the original site of the original boys' school. Her husband erected the museum in her honor in 1889. Today, the Bishop Museum is the largest museum in the state of Hawaii and is the premier historical and cultural museum in the Pacific. It has millions of artifacts and is recognized around the world for its cultural significance. It also has one of the largest natural history collection specimens in the entire world. Serving and representing the interest of the native Hawaiians is the primary interest of this museum. So we're walking up to the main entrance now, and we'll see what's inside. Okay, we just bought our tickets, and I'm walking around the grounds now. I've lived in Hawaii for about 5 years or so, and I have actually never been here, so you guys are seeing it for the first time with me. There's a guided tour that's going to start in a few minutes. Going to walk us around here, and hopefully we'll get some more good info about this place. The big dome behind me is a planetarium where they have shows of the nighttime sky, and they teach you about all the constellations and everything you can see from our vantage point here in Hawaii. So we'll go check out the planetarium. There's Hawaii right there. They have holographic displays that show the difference between times that pictures were taken. And this particular display is showing the impact of global warming since 1941. It's 2004. And here's their big planetarium for a later show.
everything, every rock, every ridge, every rill. It's unbelievable. Everything around here has a name. We have little teeny stones up in the collection area that have numbers on them and names on them. Just unbelievable. The area that you are in right here that the museum is located on is called Ka'iwi Ula. Ka'iwi Ula is really 3 words and it means the red bone. And it has to do with a legendary battle that was fought in this vicinity. Bloody battle, broken bones, and that sort of thing. That battle that I told you about, and this area became, after that, a school for young warriors. They came from all over the island, maybe from some of the other islands. They learned martial arts. First aid would have been handy, leadership skills, astronomy, those kinds of things that would have made them, and religion was very, very much a part of battles and so forth. The center part of this building was built, as you can see, 125 years ago. We're just celebrating our 125th anniversary. I don't know how your life is, but as soon as I get a storage area set up for something, I have more stuff than I knew what to do with. And that happened to the museum. So they added another section on the back a few years later, and that didn't cut it. So they added this 3-story section. So, well, it looks like one building that's really built in 3 separate parts. Let's go inside the house. And why we are here and how we got to be here has to do with Princess Bernice Bishop, who was the great-granddaughter of Kamehameha I. And she passed away in her early 50s of breast cancer. Charles Reed Bishop and he were of course married, but they had no children that survived them. Actually, Bernice was one of 3 of the last of the bloodline of Kamehameha I. 3 women, all of whom had ended up with no children surviving them. So they were the 3 of them were the end of the Kamehameha bloodline, basically. Her cousin Ruth, one of the 3, passed away a year ahead of Bernice. Ruth was probably the wealthiest woman in the nation of Hawaii in terms of land holdings and so forth, and she willed all of her things to Bernice. Bernice passes away a year later, and before she passes away, wants to figure out what is the best thing to do for her legacy, what she should leave her people. And she decides that the best thing she can do is to leave her property to fund a school for children of Hawaiian ancestry. Today, those schools are called the Kamehameha School for Boys. Well, the boys' school came up in 1887 right here on this campus. It was all wooden buildings with the exception of the Bishop Hall, which is the last of the Kamehameha school buildings. A few years after that, the girls' school came up over there where it is now a freeway. In the 1930s, they decided to move the school up the hill. Charles is tasked with being the executor for Bernice's will when she passes away. They have all of Ruth's land, they have her own land, and all of lots of property around here. He boils down to where he should put the school, and boils down to 2 choices. First, out here, where I said the school was, and where the Royal Hawaiian Shopping Center is right now in Waikiki. And the story we have is that he chose to put the school out here because he reasoned that if he put it in Waikiki, the kids would be in the water more than they would be in class. That's the story we have. He felt that the best way he could honor her memory was to build a museum to house those artifacts, which is the reason for the museum. And the reason for the museum being here is he put it on the campus where the kids would have access to it. I like to bring people in the back door after you've learned some of the histories and, just experience this. During the renovation, there were two artifacts here. The cabinetry and the floors and everything else are the original, but we cleaned out everything. Fortunately, termites are not very fond of wood, so there isn't a problem. But we were going to take down the whale. That is the actual skeleton of a 55-foot-long sperm whale, which was ordered by Mr. Bishop when the museum was new. Ordered from a catalog, not Sears and Roebuck. Paper mache on this side to look like a whale. When you get up on the third floor, you can see the whole skeletal structure. We were going to take him down in Free Willy. He'd been hanging for over 100 years. The local community members were so up in arms because it was the only thing that they remembered from their third grade field trip to the Bishop Museum. So we covered him up for the renovation, dusted him off, and he's still hanging there. The other artifact that predates is my buddy, and he is a stone image that I think I'll let Bill tell you about him in the next tour, basically, the tour of this floor. He was dug up off the missionaries when they came, asked the Hawaiians very politely to get rid of all of the artifacts of the original ones. He had been apparently buried on the Big Island.
So this is the stone guide, tour guide was talking about. He's stuck into the ground here. Sure is an ugly feller. Canoe building, sharks, whales, all kinds of stuff. Whatever that guy is. Says this surfboard is the one that traveled with Duke to Paris in 1924.
Wow.
Yeah, I always thought it was the 50th state. I don't know what's up with that. And the obligatory World War II history from Hawaii. Blackout bulbs. Pearl Harbor. That's a lot of people. An ukulele. Hawaiian flag. And the inside of the whale. There's a skeleton. Kind of creepy looking. And as we discussed in class, the problem when outsiders come in, they bring disease with them. Smallpox, leprosy. So anytime you ever see a parade where there's Hawaiian royalty in it, or they're dressed up to be Hawaiian royalty, you always see them with these weird looking poles with the feathers on top of them, and these are called kahili. And the sign says that they're basically symbols of the royal class, the chiefly class, carried by favored attendants to mark the presence of the elite. They're displayed at gatherings of special significance, and obviously all kinds of them, all shapes and colors. So there you have the Bishop Museum in a nutshell. A lot of cool stuff there. Probably more stuff than you can really see and comprehend in one day. There's some stuff that we didn't even show you. There's a building that has a dinosaur museum or exhibit in it right now, which was really cool but not really culturally significant. They also have a science center that has lots of neat displays in there, like a lava melting display in there. They also have a planetarium, which we went into, and they have a movie of the night sky, and they show you what the different constellations are and what the Hawaiians called them versus what they're called today. So this is a great museum. We had a great time here. If you are in Hawaii, if you have a chance to come down to the Bishop Museum, it's definitely worth your time to